Hey everyone, welcome back to the side quest with Jay Beast. It's your host Jay. Grab a coffee or can of whatever's fueling you today because we're jumping into the Battlefield 6 open beta. Yeah, you saw this coming and I want to talk about it properly. Not just, yeah, it was good, yeah, it was buggy, blah blah blah. We're going deeper, weekend 1 versus weekend 2. What's actually changed, what's the community saying, whether this game is on the right track or not, that's what we're going to be talking about, so stick around. Before we get into the weekends, quick history lesson for you, because I feel like the backstory actually matters a little bit here. Battlefield 1 was probably the last time entire community went, yeah, this is great. It had that World War I feeling, the destruction, the atmosphere, but then we had Battlefield 5 after that, and it was a little bit more divisive. Some people liked it, but some hated it, most hated it, but it didn't have that same love. And then came Battlefield 2042, and bruh, that launch was rough. Bugs, it was plagued with bugs everywhere, massive maps that felt kind of empty, and then we had these weird hero characters called specialists. It was weird, and it turned a lot of long-time fans like myself, really away from the game pretty much. And I remember people saying it felt like Battlefield forgot what Battlefield actually was, which is true. And then because of all that drama, they took a bit of a hiatus from the franchise, and now several years later they're now back with Battlefield 6. It sort of feels like the franchise is taking a deep breath and going, alright, let's try that again. And because of that, the hype for this beta was massive. People were ready to come back if the game felt right. So, weekend 1 drops, and straight away, huge numbers. Steam DB clocked over 520,000 concurrent players on just the beta weekend 1. That even beat Call of Duty's record on Steam, all-time high records, which is crazy when you think about it. Some financial sites were even saying EA's stock went up from the hype. People were just excited that Battlefield might finally be back. But high player numbers didn't mean smooth sailing all the time. Weekend 1 was pretty rough technically. People were reporting crashes every few matches, queue times that felt like you were trying to get into a nightclub on a Saturday night, and sometimes you load into a match only to get booted before it even starts. I saw a Reddit post where someone said, I sat in the queue for 25 minutes, loaded in, got 1 kill, game crash, I just laughed and went to bed. Personally, in my experience, it wasn't as bad as some of these comments say, but there were definitely bugs in that launch for the weekend 1 for sure. But it wasn't like game breaking bugs. There were some. Also, there was this weird time to kill issue as well. Guns sometimes felt inconsistent. Some players were calling it a super bullet bug, like you melt someone in 2 bullets, then the next guy eat half a mag and still kills you. PC Gamer mentioned that and said the gunplay felt off and would need tuning before launch. Visibility was also a complaint. Sniper glint was super bright, made long range shooting painful, not to mention that super OP shotgun that you could kill with that shotgun with like half a mile away and still get a kill. It was way too OP. And then the anti-cheat stuff. Electronic Arts had secure boot requirements on PC to try and clamp down on hackers, right? And EA said they blocked over 330,000 cheating attempts during the early access window, which sounds massive, but even then people were still running into cheaters. I have run into cheaters myself. One guy on Reddit said he got headshotted across the map by someone who clearly had aimbot running mid-beta. So the anti-cheat is working, but not fully. It's still got a long way to go. That being said, plenty of players were saying this feels like Battlefield again. The class system, the destruction, the movement, the vehicle, the core Battlefield loop was definitely there. People were frustrated though, but people were also saying, this is still kind of fun, I want to play this. It was messy, but in a nostalgic way. Now on to weekend 2, and this is where it gets a bit interesting, because EA/DICE, Battlefield Studios, whatever they want to call themselves right now, they actually added more content. They dropped a new map called Empire State, kind of like a Brooklyn style map, more verticality, tighter streets, smaller map. They also added rush mode and squad deathmatch alongside Conquest and Breakthrough. And they added a custom search filter so you could actually choose what map or mode you wanted to queue instead of just leaving it for chance. That sounded pretty good, right? But once again, not very smooth at times. Firstly, people noticed that the DLSS and DLAA options for Nvidia were just gone. They were there in weekend 1, suddenly removed in weekend 2 for some reason. PC Gamer mentioned it and said EA promised to bring it back with a fix later today. I haven't actually checked it myself to see whether it was back. I forgot. I think it did, but it's not the end of the world, but it still managed to annoy some people. And matchmaking also got kind of worse as well. Console players were saying parties kept splitting up, queues were still long, games were stuck in loading screen forever. There were posts on EA forums from someone saying they spent most of weekend 2 watching a spinning loading symbol more than actually playing the game. It's not great. Personally, I feel like matchmaking wasn't as bad as some of the people who had experienced these issues, but I did, however, feel like I was spending a little bit more time matchmaking than weekend 1. I feel like after each session, people kept getting split up or reset, so we were spending a little bit more time just waiting for people to come in, and matchmaking happened. It's a bit weird. It was a bit weird. It felt a little bit too inconsistent for sure. And also had some audio bugs. Sound disappearing mid-match or explosions not registering. Someone said on Reddit that a tank literally vanished, like the model just disappeared, and they got blown up by an invisible tank. People were posting clips of it with the caption, "You can't fight what you can't see." I mean, it's funny, but also kind of tragic. I'll put it up on my Discord server for you to have a look if you're interested in seeing what I'm talking about. Rush mode was the biggest controversy. People love Rush, and it's a staple for Battlefield, but they made it 12v12 instead of the proper 32v32. It felt a little too cramped, chaotic in a bad way, almost like a Call of Duty map. I saw a top comment saying, "This isn't Rush, it's just hallway deathmatch," which is kind of true. Windows Central said fans were slamming it as soon as the weekend started. DICE even tried to tweak respawn timers midway through the weekend, but it just didn't really save it, in my opinion. Some of us were also hoping that we would get another Conquest map rather than just having to stick with the Liberation Peak. From what I can tell, it's not a fan favorite, so there was that as well. And there were some calls to bring another map into Conquest so players can give better feedback on the Conquest mode. For now, we just stuck playing on Liberation Peak and Siege of Cairo, which is not really the same style of map. So, weekend 2 had more content, but also introduced a new wave of complaints. There are definitely players who said they enjoyed the new map and like having more modes to hop between. So it wasn't all doom and gloom, but the overall sentiment felt like, alright, this is better in some ways, but still broken in others. Now, comparing the 2 weekends side by side, weekend 1 was chaotic energy with the excitement of Battlefield is back, baby. But bugs, yes, but the core Battlefield feeling was definitely there, and we were all excited. Weekend 2 gave us more to do, but it also kind of exposed how fragile the build still is. It highlighted things that might become big problems at launch if they don't get fixed, like matchmaking reliability, cheating, and especially mode design like Rush. This might not be mainstream, but I kind of have a personal bone to pick with the menu system in Battlefield 6, which is the fact that you can't customize your loadout in between matches, which is kind of weird. We had that in previous games, but now we kind of stuck to waiting on matchmaking screen while waiting for the next match, and you can't do anything. You're locked out of your loadout menu and you just have to wait until the next game starts, and then you get like 10 seconds to choose your class and your loadout before the match starts. You can spawn and then you get like 5 seconds before you start moving to edit your loadout, but that's it. It's so weird. It's annoying. Okay, rant over. Let's get back on track. So, community vibe definitely shifted from this could be the comeback during weekend 1 to they really need to clean this up before launch, or this hype won't last kind of mindset after weekend 2. Some Reddit comments were saying things like, I was optimistic after weekend 1, now I'm not so sure, or please tell me there's actually fixing this or not just throwing more mods at us, things like that. But I don't think it's that bad, but definitely there's a lot more excitement still there, but people are a little bit more cautious now. Looking ahead, what needs to happen before launch? I think anti-cheat has to be very strong. Blocking 330,000 cheaters is impressive, but if people can still blatantly cheat in a beta, that doesn't inspire confidence. The performance polish is probably the biggest thing. Bring back DLSS, fix texture loading, and make sure the games run consistently. Also, guns definitely need more balancing, especially the shotgun. Very OP. You could get a kill half a mile away, which is not a real thing for a shotgun. So I hope they balance that as well. And also things like I mentioned, being able to access your loadout between matches and things like that. Little bit, minor improvements. And honestly, they also need to rethink Rush as well. Bring back the whole 32v32 classic mode, not just 12v12, which is weird. One good sign though, DICE, aka Battlefield Studios, were tweaking this mid-beta. They pushed small fix during weekend 2 for Rush and server stability. If they keep that momentum post-launch, the game could actually be in a really good spot by the time most players are sinking time into it. Now, the big question, will there be a weekend 3? As of today, no official announcement. Some outlets were calling weekend 2 the final open beta, but fans are hoping for one more test. Battlefield 1 actually did multiple beta tests back in the day, and people appreciated the extra polish. Battlefield 2042, on the other hand, didn't handle feedback very well, and we all saw how that went. So I actually think a short weekend 3 actually makes sense for the game. Maybe a weekend in early September. Yeah, maybe early September, just to test the fixes and give people one last hands-on. Will it happen? No idea. But if EA wants to rebuild goodwill, another weekend would speak volumes. To wrap it, here's a summary in plain English. Weekend 1 brought hype, chaos, and the classic Battlefield feeling, but had crashes, cheaters, and weird gun bugs. Weekend 2 gave us a new map, new modes, more control, but removed features like DLSS for a bit for PC. Matchmaking got a little bit worse, Rush felt a little bit off, and a lot of smaller bugs annoyed players. People want this game to succeed. You can feel that across Reddit, across Steam forums, everywhere that you see comments. People are basically saying, please don't screw this up, myself included, as a huge Battlefield fan. Battlefield deserves a proper comeback, and this beta shows that the ingredients are definitely there. They just need to cook it properly. For me personally, I'm still very excited, but I'm also a little bit nervous. If they nail anti-cheat, fix that jank, and make Rush feel like actual Rush again, fix the loadout menu, and all those little minor improvements, this could absolutely be the comeback we were all hoping for. If not, we could see another messy launch like we had with 2042, and I think this time fans won't tolerate that again. If they announce a weekend 3, you'll definitely hear about it here. I'll be back on the mic either praising it or roasting it depending on how it goes. Probably praising it at this point. I don't think the game is that bad. I'm just cautiously optimistic. If you want to see more content about Battlefield from me, you can check out my YouTube channel, JBeast Gaming, and also my Twitch, JBeast Gaming, same name. I have streamed Battlefield and I have talked about Battlefield on my channel as well, so please go check it out. If you enjoy that content, give it a like, subscribe. It really helps me out. Thanks for hanging out with me on the Side Quest podcast again. Hope you enjoyed this breakdown. Let me know what you thought of the beta if you played it. DM me or drop a comment. I check every comment and every DM and I reply to everybody. And hey, may your textures load, your DLSS stay turned on, and your tanks remain visible. This has been your host, Jay. Catch you next time. Bye bye.